Okay, so till now, you can see both sides have navigated a tense positional battlefield where white has established a slight special advantage on the king side, while black maintains a remarkably solid, flexible pawn center with open file counterplay. Okay, so Firouzja aggressive pairing of knight to h4 and bishop to h6 effectively provoked a weakening pawn hook on g6 and forced Gukesh rook off the f file. Okay, so now Firouzja develops his queen to f3, preparing to sack the knight on f5 so that he can open up the g file and then go to, this g3 square to give a check. So to stop this, Gukesh brings his bishop back to f8. And after that, bishop takes f8, rook takes f8, queen to e3, preparing to bring this queen to h6. And guys, here Gukesh brings his queen to d8. Maybe he wants to bring his knight to h5 so that he can target this knight on h4. Okay, so Gukesh brings his queen Firouzja brings his queen to h6, knight to c5. Gukesh targets the bishop. And guys, here is a variation which, white can consider, which is to sack the knight on g6 with knight takes g6. And obviously, black can't capture this knight with the f pawn due to the pin by bishop. So that's why h takes g6 is forced, but then queen takes g6 check, taking benefit of the pin. And after king to h8, bishop takes f7. And since white is now threatening to give a check from h6 square, so black can play knight to h7. And although this position is still equal, but black has to be precise due to this destroyed structure. Okay, so in the actual game, after knight to c5, here Firouzja brings his bishop to a2. And you can see what's coming next. Okay, so after that, here Firouzja brings his queen to h4. He is now targeting the knight, but guys, that's a mistake because he misplaces his queen from this h6 square, which is the best one. Instead, the best move for white is to consider the move knight to f1. And guys, that's a very good move. At first sight, it might look unusual, but if you proceed further in this game, I mean, let's say if black decides to capture on b2 so that he can push, his own pawns, but now comes knight to g5. And the idea is if let's say black decides to proceed with c5, rook to e3, and suddenly you can see, white pieces are, getting ready to attack towards the king side. I mean, in the next move, this rook can come to f3 so that he can target the knight, which clearly makes this position winning for white. But guys, now what I'm going to tell you that there is only one move which can save this game for black. Just pause the video and try to guess the move by yourself. And I'm pretty sure that most of you can't, because the move is bishop to g4. And here the best move for white is to capture the pawn on h7, and then knight takes h7, h takes g4, and then rook to h3 so that he can target on h7. But let's say after bishop to g4, if white decides to capture on g4, that will be a huge mistake, because in this position black can now sacrifice his queen by queen takes f2 check, because after king takes f2, knight takes g4 check, and in the next move black is going to get his piece back with a slightly comfortable position than the previous one, because in this line white has to be precise to maintain the upper hand. That's amazing, really amazing. Okay, so in the game after the move queen to h4, so knight to h5, he just defends it, and then queen to e7. As you can see, now he is targeting the d6 pawn, but Gukesh brings his knight to f4, uh, which is a mistake. Instead, queen to e6 might be the best option so that he can defend the pawn, because now Firouzja just takes on d6, and in the next move he's going to grab this pawn. Okay, so now Gukesh brings his queen to b5 so that he can defend the knight. But guys, in this position, now Firouzja can consider this crazy move, rook to a1. And the idea is, after let's say queen takes b2, instead of defending this knight, white can consider this amazing move, rook to a7, because if queen takes d2, queen to c7, threatening mate on h7, and let's say if queen takes h2 f2 check, then king to h1, and if he gives a check again, then king to h2, and you can see now there is no way to stop this mate. But in the game after queen to b5, Firouzja misses this and he goes for knight at d goes to c4. And basically he blocks the defense of the knight, and now he is threatening to capture it. But this is of no use, because Gukesh just brings his knight to f4. And you can see what he is preparing for. So that's why Firouzja slides his king to h2. And after that, bishop to e6. He's now, attacking the knight. So Firouzja defends with rook to c1. And now it's better to consider the move rook to f7 with the idea of rook to d7 so that he can target the queen. But he, instead decides to grab the knight, which is a mistake, because he just, exchanges his active piece. Okay, so knight takes c4, rook to f7, rook to c2. And guys, now it's better for black to consider the move queen to a4, attacking the rook. And if white defends, let's say with the knight, because obviously this is not going to work because of then simply takes. Okay, so yeah, so let's say if he defends with knight to e3, then just queen takes e4. And let's say if rook takes c6, then knight to e2. And in the next move, black is going to give a check from f4 square, which clearly makes this position better for black. But in the game after rook to c2, here Gukesh placed his queen to b3. He targets the rook, but simply knight to e3. And you can see now everything is well protected. And now it's better for Firouzja to bring this rook to c7, but instead he, goes for queen to e8. And you can see he wants to play rook to c8 so that he can, give a check from g8 square. But rook to e7, Gukesh targets the queen. So queen to d8, knight to e6. He attacks the queen again, so that's why knight to d5. And Firouzja just counters with knight to d5, and then knight takes d8, knight takes b4. Both sides, exchanges the queen, and now Gukesh is targeting the knight, so that's why knight to d5, knight to e6, b4, and Firouzja just started to pushing his pawns, rook to c6, and now he is targeting the knight, so king to f7, and then b5. And obviously rook takes b5 is not possible because of now white can just sack the rook. Why? Because after king takes e6, then knight to c7 check. So that's why after the move b5, here Gukesh goes for knight to d4. He is now attacking the rook, but he gives a check, rook takes c7, knight takes c7. And now we are heading to the end game, and let's see how Firouzja converts this into a win. First of all, okay, so king to e7 by Gukesh. He wants to bring this king, closer to the pawn, but b6, king to d6, knight to d5. Okay, he defends his pawn. King to c6, trying to act as a barrier, but f3, takes, knight to b3, king to g3, knight to d2. Both sides just shuffling, and now he's attacking, but Firouzja defensive with the knight to f6, and now he is attacking the pawn on h7, but king takes b6. And now it's better for Firouzja to get closer to the pawn, but instead he considered king to f2. And now for black, it's better to just push h6, getting away from the target of knight, but instead he plays h5. And guys, that's a blunder because now Firouzja gives a check from d7 square. King to c7, but knight takes e5. Knight takes e4 check. King to f3, e3, attacking the knight, so knight has to move. Knight takes g6, king to d6, king to f4, knight to d5, king to g5, attacking the pawn, but knight to e3, and then knight to f4, defending the pawn, king to e5, and g3. Okay, king to e4, knight takes g5. Finally, he grabs the pawn, king to f3, but g4. Knight to d1, and guys, in this position, the final move by Firouzja is knight to f6, and here Gukesh resigned. This is because, let's say if this game continues like king to g3, then h4, and you can see now no one can stop this pawn from promotion. I mean, there is no way that this knight can jump and and then he can stop. I mean, what an amazing game by Firouzja. Like this video, and I will see you in the next one. This is your host Bison signing off. Bye bye.